Good afternoon and welcome to the Hiring Our Heroes career community. My name is Mona Dexter. I'm the Senior Director for Operations and Communications for Hiring Our Heroes, a program of the United States Chamber of Commerce Foundation. First and foremost, we hope that this finds you all, and we thank you for joining us today. We're thrilled to be partnering with our friends at Student Veterans of America to bring you this session on economic strategies for student veterans. With that, I would like to turn it over to our partners at Student Veterans of America, Ryan Raybeck and Lauren Augustine.
Thank you, Mona. My name is Ryan Raybeck, and I'm the Vice President of Marketing and Communications for Student Veterans of America. I just want to thank you, Mona, and your entire team at Hiring Our Heroes so much for helping us put this together today. We've heard from so many students and military-connected students and student veterans about what a difficult time this has been the last few weeks, whether that is the struggle of switching to fully online education, or perhaps a reduction in work hours, or the loss of a job, or difficulties in caring for family and paying the bills, or just graduating and thinking about starting your career or internship. So we hope that today will be a helpful start of the discussion and a sharing of resources as this pandemic continues. And I'd like to introduce as well our Vice President of Government Affairs, Lauren Augustine. Lauren.
Hi, thank you, Ryan. Thank you again to the Chamber and to our partners who have joined us as panelists today. Looking forward to the discussion. As Ryan mentioned, we've seen an increase in the concern and questions around the type of economic opportunity options available to student veterans, and today's session should be very useful, and looking forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Great. So I'd like to take us over into our first panel, which we're calling Data and Trends. And I'd like to introduce two of our panelists today. First off, Andrew Dennis, who is a senior strategist for the military and veterans programs over at Indeed. And I love Indeed's mantra in their department, which is "We help veterans get jobs." And we greatly appreciate you, Andrew, and your team for that. And in addition to Andrew, we will have Sarah Roberts joining us. Sarah is the head of military and veterans programs for LinkedIn. She's responsible for creating programs and social impact to help all of LinkedIn's members realize their full potential through empowerment, continued service, training, and partnerships. So with that, I will pass things over to Andrew and Sarah.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ryan. Really appreciate the warm intro.
So if I could just start off and perhaps just pass, starting with something general, what are some of the changes and trends that we're seeing so far from your perspective, whether that is in job changes, job demands, different fields that are hiring or not hiring, and all of the above?
Yeah, certainly. Andrew, do you want to go, or I'm happy to jump in either way?
Oh, you can kick this one off.
Awesome. Yeah, so I think this has certainly been a large pivot in what we've seen across the job market economically for many job seekers. So what we're seeing globally of our 675 million members is large pivots across key industries. So some of the key areas that we've been able to research and really dive into through our monthly workforce reports. We're seeing some of the very obvious changes. So an increase in healthcare, frontline workers, volunteer roles. We've also seen a huge rise in essential retail. So when you think of e-commerce platforms, we're starting to see large numbers of increase in hiring there. Some specific examples there are grocery, pharmacy, food delivery. We're also seeing an increase in cleaning services. The ordinary storefront, physical store commerce is down, which due to the current reality is pretty obvious. But we have seen an 88% increase across the US for some of those essential retail positions. So some of the key companies that we know are hiring, so Kroger just posted 19,000 job postings. Amazon, Facebook, Amazon Web Services, Accenture, home healthcare is also another industry that is hiring. We're seeing other top companies like IBM, the American Red Cross, Google, HCA Healthcare, and Capital One. Those are some of the key areas where we're seeing companies actually increase the number of job openings that they have. Some of the other areas where we are seeing additional headcount become available are frontline positions. So some of those would include people who have typically worked in restaurant or cafe type of positions. They're quickly being pivoted to delivery and working and volunteering in food banks. We're also seeing a huge growth in grocery and then also in the medical assistant space. Some of the other areas that I've found just super interesting and surprising as we've started to really dig into our data is the level of confidence in job seekers representing certain industries. So while we did see a high increase in some of those roles in March that I highlighted previously, we are starting to see a little bit of retraction. So some of those areas had a huge boom in March. We're starting to see that plateau a little bit as we get further along into April. We also see that millennials, in terms of that middle bucket, feel relatively confident about their job prospects. However, we know that folks that are within transition or closer to retirement have a much lower confidence on their employability. And then regionally, we're seeing the West Coast industries are starting to appear more optimistic. Along with the Southeast, we're still seeing large buckets across the Northeast, relatively less confident just based off of what we're seeing with COVID-19 right now. And then I think some of the other industries that we're seeing in terms of hourly specific roles where there are non-degree requirements. So Albertsons, CVS, I had mentioned Amazon and Kroger, Target, Trader Joe's, and then anything that is aligned with food delivery. So those have been some really interesting areas where we're starting to get more clarity around the trends. And we'll continue to publish monthly workforce reports where we'll dig into that level of data. And I also recommend you follow our LinkedIn Editors Edition because we'll publish every month and every other week. We're updating that data in order to inform our job seekers on what's happening across the global markets.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Sarah. You know, Indeed is seeing a lot of the same data trends. Not to really name the same ones that you just did with the groceries, pharmacies, and frontline healthcares. Also bringing in, when you're thinking about what's going on and how are supplies getting from warehouses and factories, and how are they going to get to the healthcare facilities? How are they going to get to businesses and homes? Kind of what you were mentioning there, we've seen a dramatic increase in the amount of load-in and stock-in positions being added to the Indeed platform. So again, how are things getting from point A to point B? Management driving positions are also up. The gig economy is up for services like Instacart and TaskRabbit and Uber Eats. So as people aren't leaving their homes, but they still have to eat if they're not able to cook, these services are in high demand for hiring. One of the things that I love about the military community and some of the data that we've uncovered in March is that the military community actually really stepped up in the fight against COVID-19. So when we're seeing that employers are looking for ways to make sure that supply chains are still running as efficiently as possible, how are the groceries getting from farm to Kroger's and H-E-B's and the Wegmans of the world? We see that the military community is actually clicking on and engaging with positions for loading and stocking, community social services, management, installation and maintenance, as well as logistics and operation. When you're thinking of the military community and how does equipment get from point A to point B, we're seeing that the engagement rate of the military population on Indeed's platform is answering that call and helping to make sure that all these different pieces of equipment and food supply and everything's still running. We've also seen that the phrase remote and work from home is just skyrocketing up and to the right. So more virtual interviews are starting to happen, and more employers are starting to put work from home and remote in the job titles and job descriptions that they're posted on the platform. So I think the data trend is really exciting, especially for anyone transition now who may want to stay in the location that they are, and anyone who's a military spouse. I think it's great that there's this shift in culture and the shift in believing that the job can still get done if people work from home. So I think that's one of the positive things to take out of COVID-19 is for the industries and businesses that were pretty much against working from home traditionally. I think now they're starting to see that the job can still get done with that. So I think that's a really positive thing to also take out of this.
Awesome. And if you don't mind, I'll just add a couple other things because there was a question about a lot of these positions being low income minimum wage jobs. While we are seeing that as sort of a theme and a trend across the global economy, what we have seen, and I'm sure Indeed is seeing the same thing, there are still jobs. There's absolutely still jobs across the US market, but what we are seeing pivot is clearly some of those industries that have typically been hiring large numbers. There's been a level of attraction or retraction or a pivot to other industries that maybe haven't typically hired as many, haven't been as high volume hiring. The other trend that we're seeing is an increase in hourly pay and bonuses. So that's definitely a positive because the demand across that area has gone up. And then some of the other key job functions that we are seeing that fall outside of, that low income entry level type of role. I'm seeing systems operations as a reoccurring high demand job. The demand for CPAs, believe it or not, is also one that we're seeing an increase in. Anything in healthcare, everything from medical assistant to nurses and doctors, which very clearly makes sense right now. Construction management is also another one. We see an increase in psychology. Psychologists, psychiatrists, that has definitely upticked in demand. And then the other one that I think also falls more in that professional realm, kind of academic advisors and counselors, as a lot of folks are starting to rethink, especially in this community, what that means for the future of their education, their degree selection, and the opportunities that they were hoping to pursue.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Andrew, as well. Wanted to shift a little bit over to a discussion around legislation and benefits. Wanted to introduce another one of our panelists, Ms. Margarita Devlin. And Ms. Devlin currently serves as the Principal Deputy Undersecretary for Benefits at the Department of Veterans Affairs. She serves as a second in command at the Veterans Benefit Administration, which administers benefits programs for veterans, including education, home loan guarantee, disability compensation, pension, fiduciary, folk rehab and employment, life insurance, and transition assistance. Ms. Devlin, please take us away.
Thank you, and thanks for having me here. It's really my pleasure to be here. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay, to talk to you about how VA is supporting student veterans. Of course, everybody has concerns right now about everything that's going on and how to weather and survive this current situation, and all the uncertainties caused by the pandemic. So we're happy to be here to say that VA is here for you. We're here for veterans and for their dependents and their survivors. It's a whole new landscape for all of us in these uncertain times. So we're here to make sure you get access to as many answers and resources as possible. So I'll just go over a few things. Let me start with education. So in the wake of COVID-19, thousands of students across the nation have been converted to distance learning as many colleges and universities transition to online technology-based lesson delivery. On March 21st, President Trump signed into law a bill, Senate 3503, which enables VA to continue providing the same level of education benefits to students who are now taking their courses online due to COVID-19. Thanks to this law, GI Bill students will continue receiving the same monthly housing allowance payments that they were getting for residence training until December 21st, or until the school resumes in-person classes, whichever one comes first. The most important thing to know, though, is that students receiving GI Bill benefits are not required to take any action. Their benefits will continue automatically. If a student's situation has become more complicated, has more complicated circumstances, like, for example, partial cancellation of classes, or for some reason, even though your school went online, you're unable to participate in your classes, just give us a call. Our VA representatives can walk you through your unique situation. And the number is 1-888-GI-BILL-1. Students attending vocational or post-secondary schools or on-the-job training or apprenticeships will also continue to receive their regular monthly housing payment if the facilities were able to convert the training to an online format. And we also have a bunch of training webinars to educate schools regarding this new law. So, and you can look at those. You can find those at benefits.va.gov/GI-Bill. Other pending legislation. On April 21st, Congress passed H.R. 6322, also called the Student Veteran Coronavirus Response Act of 2020. And it's headed to the president now for his signature. If signed into law by the president, this will give us even more authorities to support student veterans. First, it'll allow for the continuation of payments to students participating in the work-study program. Some of those students are furloughed or have had to stop working. The new law also allows for VA to continue to pay benefits for up to 4 weeks to GI Bill students whose classes were suspended, even if the school is still open. There's also a provision for restoration of entitlement for GI Bill and VRNE students who lose credit due to school closure or due to the school's suspension of training. And the new law will allow VA to extend the delimiting dates for GI Bill and VRNE students if they're unable to attend training due to COVID-19. VA already had the authority to extend delimiting dates for survivors and DEA beneficiaries, Dependent Educational Assistance Program. And finally, the new law will also provide for 2 extra months of employment assistance allowance for VRNE students. We're working to immediately implement the new changes upon enactment to ensure that students continue to receive their education benefits. And we're also continuing to work with Congress on even more legislation to address issues that students are facing related to COVID-19. And we'll keep posting information on our GI Bill webpage, so please follow us on our GI Bill webpage and our GI Bill Facebook page and visit those frequently for updates. And again, our phone number, 1-888-GI-BILL-1 for student veterans benefits, 888-442-4551, and it's open from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern Time. I also want to tell you another program that's really, most people don't really know is even out there. It's our education and career counseling services. And now more than ever, I think this can be really useful to student veterans. Our education and career counseling services are available to any eligible veteran or other beneficiary who is currently eligible for any VA education program. It's also available for transitioning service members 6 months before discharge or up to 12 months after separation from the military. And this includes career counseling, assessments, education planning, and guidance and resources to help veterans achieve their personal career and education goals. So if any veteran is looking to pursue higher education or is currently pursuing higher education, and they might just want to talk to a professional counselor about what to do next or how to plan their future, that's what this is all about. These services are provided by professional counselors at VA regional offices, at Vet Success on campus sites, and also by professional counselors under contract with VA. And we recently solicited feedback from veterans as part of our efforts to modernize this program. So based on their feedback, we're in the process of expanding the program to make it even more relevant to today's student veteran population. And part of that will also include a renaming of the program. So the new name will be the Personalized Career Planning and Guidance Program. Student veterans we talked to said they really didn't like the word counseling in the program. It didn't give the right connotation. So we're changing the name, and we're also expanding the program. So keep an eye out for more news coming soon on that. But you can get the services now. And in order to apply for the services now, you just go to va.gov and search under careers and employment, and you'll see education and career counseling. You can apply now, and we are providing services virtually during COVID-19. Let me switch gears to vocational rehab and employment. Our Voc Rehab and Employment program continues to operate. We've just shifted from in-person counseling services to telecounseling. So veterans can meet with their counselors virtually through VA Video Connect. which is accessible on any web-enabled device with a webcam and a microphone. And veterans can still apply for VRD services, even though regional offices are not open to the public, they're still working. And you can submit an application through eBenefits at www.ebenefits.va.gov. If you're at a school that has a Vet Success on Campus counselor, those counselors are still working. They're not on campus, but they're available virtually. And you can find their email address on the school's website. You can email them and you can make an appointment to talk to them either by telephone or by video. And you can also, if you're not sure, you can always call us at 1-800-827-1000 or submit an inquiry through the contact us option on va.gov. Lots of ways to get in touch with us. So let me talk a little bit about home loans and what we're doing in that space. We're really working hard to address the economic hardships that are impacting veteran homeowners and potential home buyers. So we've issued guidance to mortgage lenders to make it easier for veterans to get home loans during the pandemic. And things like allowing for electronic acceptance of documents, providing flexibilities for activities like appraisals, employment verification, addressing breaks in employment or loss of income. And in response to the CARES Act, VA also issued guidance to help veterans stay in their homes by issuing a moratorium on foreclosures. And as always, VA provides support to veterans to help them avoid foreclosure. So if you need to get assistance, please contact us. And you can also get, of course, more information on the va.gov website. One other topic I'd like to talk about is disability compensation, pension, and survivors benefits. So veterans and claimants can continue to submit their claims for those services. You can submit by mail, by fax, or online at va.gov. And of course, for the health and safety of our veterans and our employees, we're not currently doing in-person disability examinations. However, we're still continuing to process claims. So what we're doing is, when we can, we're reviewing the file and the medical evidence in the file and contacting the veteran or asking our providers to issue a medical opinion without having to see the veteran. Or if we can, some of our exams can be done virtually with that same VA telehealth technology. But whenever we can't do an exam and we need to do one in person, we will not make a decision without that exam. We'll wait until we can, and then we'll continue the process there. So we put into place as many flexibilities as we can, including allowing extensions on dates that are in place now. Effective March 1st, so that's the beginning of sort of this effective period. If a veteran or a claimant needs an extension of a time limit based on the pandemic, we will grant those requests. All they have to do when they submit their claim is just say that they'd like an extension. For example, for appeals or certain decision reviews, there's time limits on when you can do that. And usually once that time limit's gone, it's gone. Well, because of this flexibility, if you just ask for an extension, just file your appeal or your claim whenever you're ready to, and say that it's due to COVID-19, that you missed your deadline, and we will extend it. One more program I want to tell everybody about, because this is really new, and this is about transition, and I heard earlier that comment about transition being hard. We all know that that first year after separation from the military can be really tough, and it's tough on veterans and on their families. So this past December, we launched a new program called Solid Start. Solid Start is a proactive outreach effort that shifts the responsibility for that initial contact with VA from the veteran to VA. Under Solid Start, VA has started contacting veterans by phone at 3 intervals during that first year of separation. And these highly trained Solid Start representatives are helping veterans in a variety of ways and connecting them with critical resources and support. And veterans who have experienced mental health needs are prioritized so that we can ensure they're connected to mental health resources. We want to start early to build lifelong trusted relationships with veterans by providing early, proactive, consistent, and compassionate care. And if you want to learn more about Solid Start, you can go to our website, benefits.va.gov/transition. The stress of this pandemic can be hard for everybody, but it can be especially challenging for new veterans who are just in the process of their transition, and really, honestly, veterans of any era. So remember, if you are a veteran in crisis, or if you're concerned about a veteran who may be in crisis, Free confidential support is always available 24/7. Reach out to the Veterans Crisis Line at 1-800-273-8255 and press 1. Or you can also send a text message, and that number for text messaging is 838-255, and you'll get immediate assistance. One more thing I think is important for everybody to know, and this applies to all VA benefits. VA is suspending all debt collection activities during the COVID-19 pandemic. If you get a letter and you're confused or you're not sure of how this applies to you, just call our Debt Management Center. The Debt Management Center phone number is 1-800-827-0648. So I'm going to repeat some of those numbers. So the Debt Management Center, 1-800-827-0648. For education benefits, it's 1-888-GI-BILL-1. That's the easiest way to remember it. And then for all other inquiries, or even if you're just not sure, you can start with our main number, which is 1-800-827-1000. And it's got a voice-activated voice recognition software. If you're looking for Voc Rehab, just say Voc Rehab. If you're looking for anything else, just say what you're looking for, and you'll get connected to somebody on that. So in closing, I just want to say we recognize that every student veteran's journey and experience is unique. And in these uncertain times, we just want veterans and their families and dependents and survivors to know how much we acknowledge and are valuing your service. And we also acknowledge that you may be experiencing some challenges right now. So VA is here for you. We're working hard to make sure veterans receive full, seamless support and access to the benefits and services that they've earned. In fact, we're so busy that we're hiring. We're hiring for positions all across the country. So if you want to see positions that we're hiring for, if you go to benefits.va.gov, so www.benefits.va.gov, and you click under the resources section, there's a link that says jobs at VA, or sorry, at VBA. Click on jobs at VBA, and then scroll down and you'll see all the different types of jobs that we hire for. And if one of them sounds interesting to you and you'd like to apply, if you click on it, it'll take you right to the USA Jobs link so that you can see what the dates are for that opening and how to apply. So we're doing everything that we can to be here for you. And during this webinar, to make sure we can answer even the most detailed of questions, I've brought the experts with me. So when it's time for Q&A, we will have our education director, she's on the line, Charmaine Bogue, our VRE director, Will Streitberger, and our deputy director for our appeals management office, Brianne Ogilvie. They're all here. So during the Q&A, if you have a specific question I can't answer, they'll be there to jump in. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me here.
Margarita and Charmaine, Will, and Brianne, thank you so much for taking the time to join us for this. I wanted to take a quick second to extend a hearty thank you for the tremendous proactive work everybody at VA and particularly VBA has been doing to minimize the impact of COVID as felt by students. It's really been phenomenal, the speed at which you've been able to get things done. So thank you. And with that, we'll go back to Ryan.
Thanks, Lauren, and thanks so much, Margarita, to you and the entire team. For our next panel for just a few moments, I know we want to leave time for questions. I'd like to hand things back over to Mona Dexter to discuss some of the current longer-term opportunities right now in the job market, approaches to the virtual job search, and perhaps other professional development opportunities that might be of interest. And I would invite Sarah and Andrew to join us in that as well. Mona?
Thanks, Ryan. Yes, so there are still jobs. There are still companies hiring. As Sarah and Drew mentioned earlier, there are careers continuing across the country. Some of them may look a little bit different in terms of short-term and medium-term work. Obviously, there are some high priority needs, particularly in logistics and healthcare and retail. But those employers are saying that right now this is a high priority fill for a short-term, potentially temporary position that could become a long-term career. Again, with some uncertain times, the projection is just not 100% right now, but the opportunity is there. And so again, there are jobs being filled across the country. As far as high priority industries, again, those three that we mentioned, healthcare, technology, retail, I guess 4, sorry, and transportation logistics. Those are in high demand and continue to be. At Hiring Our Heroes, in addition to holding sessions like this, we are hosting a series of professional development sessions, and both Andrew and Sarah have joined us multiple times to provide advice on how to connect virtually and build that digital profile. Everything is being done in a digital way right now. We're working in a virtual space. So I would encourage you to join us. Our services and programs are for the entire military connected job seeker community. So veterans, student veterans, military spouses, transitioning service members, everybody is welcome and invited to connect with these resources and connect with the employers who are looking for this talent, because they are committed to ensuring economic opportunity for the military community. So I would encourage you to look at our event calendar. It's hiringourheroes.org/events. And we have a leadership coaching series happening on Mondays. Tuesdays is focused on employment preparation, career transition, professional development. Wednesdays is for overall well-being and wellness. Thursdays, we have industry information. So we have industry speaking across the board, and these are industries that are hiring right now, about what their needs are, what type of talent they're seeking, and how to connect with them. And Fridays are, again, special speakers, special sessions, where we're hosting several employer connections. We have held employer connections directly with Amazon and Walmart, who are both hiring across the country for roles at various levels. And again, some of them are short-term opportunities that they foresee turning into long-term opportunities. We have a session tomorrow with Lockheed Martin. Again, the defense industry has many roles available across the country. So again, I would encourage you to look at what's being offered virtually, since that's how most actions are being done at the moment. Stay connected, build up your digital presence. And with that, I will turn it over back to Sarah and Drew to talk a little bit more about strategies for this virtual job search and how to really build your digital profile.
Thanks, Mona. Yeah, so here at Indeed.com, what we're trying to do, just like LinkedIn on a weekly and monthly basis, is get the data to you all as fast as we can. So as fast as we can, understand the data, look at the trends, see what's shifting in the market. We're going to try to get that to you. We've created a site, veterans.indeed.com, to just have a little bit extra of a hand to the military community during this time. So there's COVID-19 data on there, how to do a job search, how to create a resume, and we even have a resume review service that we just launched in order to help anybody who's still kind of questioning, is my resume in a good spot? Will employers understand my military background, what I've done in school, and then what job I want for the future? So we're here to help along that way. And you can even see the data trends that we have through our Hiring Labs team to get a better understanding of what's available now and what's available down the road, and what trends are on the downtick and which ones are on the up. One piece of for advice that I would probably give too is, getting into these companies in a role that might not be the best fit, but getting in, and then after COVID-19 kind of shifts gears and maybe goes to the wayside, you're a part of that organization. I think maybe you then have further conversations on what career you would want at that company. So different things to consider. The job that you can get isn't the end all be all. So sometimes being a little bit flexible during this crazy time could be a great way to get into an organization that maybe you haven't heard back from, and taking a different position, and then seeing if you can shift into another position later on is something that you can always try. But again, I would check out veterans.indeed.com or just regular Indeed.com and check out all of the COVID-19 resources that we're adding on a daily basis. Last thing I would add, if you are ready to work and you are looking for a position now, if you go to your resume on Indeed and actually put in the checkbox ready to work, it's a new way that we're sending that to employers that are looking to hire immediately. So it's a great way to stand out in all the chaos. If you are looking for a job right now, there are a lot of companies that are looking to fulfill their positions, like Mona mentioned.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Yeah, and I think we're seeing a lot of overlapping trends, certainly, as we look at the global market. We're definitely seeing some certain geographies that are doubling down more than others, where we're seeing more job openings. So places like Sacramento, Nashville, Miami, Atlanta, Phoenix are all areas where we're actually seeing a significant increase in opportunities. We're seeing slumps in cities like New York City and Detroit, which clearly makes sense based off of the shelter in place and some of the things that are happening as a result of COVID-19. In the short term, we're definitely seeing a retraction across the small business space. There's less confidence overall for small business owners, in addition to contract and freelance work. However, the positive in that, and what we're seeing as a long-term prediction, is that remote contract and freelance work will actually grow over the course of the next few weeks and months. So that is something that we're looking forward to. As you start to think about how to connect with employers, thinking about how to really double down on that job search, if you are facing any type of gap or you've recently been furloughed or laid off, obviously there's a ton of volunteer opportunities. While that doesn't increase your level of income, it does still give you the opportunity to grow your skills, which is something that is always highly valuable to employers. Some other things that I think are also helpful, just when I start to think of the value of our community and how we continue to pull each other forward, our networking is more essential now than it has ever been before. We know that 70% of professionals actually said they wanted to help somebody find a job. And so I think just the value that our community gives back to each other is a great way to ask for help and use that as an opportunity to connect, understand what jobs are available, understand key industries, and really grow that knowledge base. We also have a posting on urgent jobs on LinkedIn. And so all of the urgent jobs that are available immediate now, that's something that you can definitely navigate to if that's something that you're interested in. We've also developed community resources, both for employers and job seekers, to continue to kind of grow that market. And then as we think of strategies, like the world has moved virtual, we've really adapted and pivoted to this virtual marketplace when we think of employers and job seekers over the course of the last few weeks. And I think you've seen companies really pivot and become adaptable and nimble to doing on-site interviews, or not on-site interviews, virtual interviews, which makes it even more instrumental for folks to think about how to prep for a virtual interview, ensuring you have the technology in place, ensuring you feel comfortable in front of a camera, and that you can really practice and articulate your skills. So one way you can do that, if you are a veteran and you've leveraged your free premium benefit, is that we have an interview prep tool. So you can actually go through and practice your interview skills. You can share a video of yourself with your network and solicit feedback. So it's a great way to, again, evangelize our community and continue to grow your network and ask for help. We've also started to really pivot to this virtual space. So companies are now hosting virtual events on LinkedIn. We're also seeing companies host LinkedIn Live events to share informationals about areas that they're hiring in, different trends that they're seeing across their company. So that's a great way, if you're following a company page, to tune in and kind of see what some of those recruiters and leaders are saying across their companies. And then the last piece that I would highlight, which has been a really interesting pivot, is this idea of upskilling. So we've seen the L&D space really grow and increase in the demand dramatically over the course of the last few weeks. So LinkedIn Learning is a great resource that you can access through your premium benefit. But we've seen the online virtual environment dedicated to courses and upskilling really evolve and offer some significant benefits to job seekers that are sort of within this window where they have a little additional time, or they're looking to upskill in a certain space or industry so that they can be more competitive in their job search. So hopefully those are some great insights, but again, you can always go to LinkedIn. You can also check out LinkedIn's military page at linkedin.com/military to learn more about our resources. So super grateful and huge thanks to Mona and team for organizing this and having us be a part of it.
Thank you, Sarah and Drew. And I just want to reiterate, there are some questions in the Q&A about repeating websites and repeating phone numbers. For housekeeping purposes, this session is being recorded and will be available on our hub. It's hiringourheroes.org/career-community. So again, if you need to revisit any information or you know someone who was unable to attend, they can still access all of this information. And all of our sessions are put up on that landing page as well for, again, for resources that are continuously available. So check out that session as well. And I did forget to mention that we are also hosting a virtual hiring fair on May 8th. So you can register for that through our event page. You'll be able to see the list of companies that are hiring nationally across that page. And the week prior to that, we will be hosting a series of sessions to help you prepare for that virtual job search. So again, Sarah and Drew, thank you so much for your insights and your expertise on helping folks to build their digital profiles and connect through this virtual world that we're in now. With that, I'll turn it back to Ryan.
Thank you, Mona. With that, I think we do have a few minutes left if panelists would be willing to stick around and answer some of our Q&As. I will turn it back to you.
Okay. Yes, we have several questions. I am going to filter through first to the ones that are directed at the VA. Margarita and your team, there are quite a few here. Sorry, let me go back to finding this one. It looks as though maybe they were addressed. Okay, within your sections. Okay, reiterating some of the information as far as, if you could just revisit some of the information as far as offering classes that school certifying officials are unable to certify as resident. Again, could you revisit what is being done to help with that? Because we know early on that that was a concern with many of the classes going online, that they were no longer considered resident classes. If you could just respond again to how that has been resolved or addressed. Oh, Charmaine, we can't hear you.
Hi, Charmaine, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, that's the power of the mute button. Okay, so for just a couple of weeks ago, there was legislation that passed that actually addressed the conversion to online modality. And that piece of legislation basically stated if a course did convert to the online modality, VA, you can continue to pay the in-residence rate. Great examples, if a student's in the California area, let's say San Francisco, receiving $4,500, that school's closed down because of coronavirus, and now they're only operating online, that student will still receive that $4,500 per month as relates to their monthly housing allowance. Now, the other piece of that is, I know there was a question in the chat box very similar that talked about if the course is not able to convert to online, then what happens then? Well, the most recent legislation that passed this week that Ms. Devlin mentioned, and we're waiting for the president to sign, which should be very soon, that actually allows for us to continue to pay courses for those that are not able to convert online for a certain number of weeks. So in the coming weeks, we will be sending guidance out to school certifying officials to let them know how to process those particular enrollments. So hopefully that's able to address that question. Thank you.
Yes, and there was a question about BAH for fall semester if classes are still online.
Yes, so if courses are still online, then yes, you would still receive that in-residence rate. The way the law was written, it basically stated any terms that started on March 1st and all the way through December 21st of this year, if those terms are affected, we are still able to pay that in-residence rate. So that's applicable to summer terms, mini semesters, the fall, winter sessions, as long as they start before December 21st, then we can continue to pay that in-residence rate. Thank you.
This is a pretty specific question about an individual case. So, if it requires individual follow-up, we can handle that as well. It's coming from a service provider at a school that a student at their institution was in a mini course with an international week-long course that was canceled. And his MHA has now been impacted, and he's received notice of a debt, of owing a debt. So the administrator is looking for some clarity as far as whether there is any legislation that accounts for these changes and how they've impacted, again, some of these case-by-case individual situations. And really it's pointing to that this was caused by the pandemic, not an individual situation. So
understood. I did see that question. That is a very specific question. I will give a general answer to this as it relates to the legislation that I mentioned that just passed this week. That should address that, because that's a course that was affected and is not able to continue to operate online. But to know really the details of that, we will have webinars going on over the next couple of weeks, and I would advise for that training provider to join those webinars so we can help navigate through that particular situation.
Thank you. And then if you could revisit processing time for using Chapter 33 benefits. There is a question about an attendee who enrolled in classes that started online in March.
Yes, so actually our processing times for the month of April were actually at about 10 days, 9.5 days for an original application coming in the door, and then for an enrollment document, as it relates to student enrollment documents, we're about 5 days, a little bit less than 5 days coming in the door for that on average. There are unique situations that happen, and we have to coordinate with the school or Department of Defense for eligibility information, so those are some outliers, but overall, those are the numbers and where we are from a processing standpoint. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, outlook for GI Bill or voc rehab, but the inability to secure an internship or externship to finish a degree. Can you speak to that? And does that fall under the extensions, or is that something that you can address as well?
I did see that question as well. So as it relates to the extern and internships, there will be there's a few aspects to that. One, if you're not able to continue that piece online, and that's something we can address with the school to potentially continue to pay for the monthly housing allowance. Two, if you need to come back and maybe you're burning hot on an entitlement and you need to be able to come back at a later date to use that, the new law the new law basically provides that ability for us to extend those times. So there will be some avenues for an individual to ultimately complete their internship and externship in our space.
Okay, thank you. One more regarding work study. And again, this is an attendee who had several hundred hours left on the work study contract. Again, what is the plan as far as recompensating for those hours?
So for work study, there's a few pieces to that. So if a student is able to continue their work study activities online or in a remote environment, then we can continue to pay that student. Or if they're able to perform those duties from another location, we're able to pay that student. And then there's another piece that if a student knows that maybe they're not able to complete their hours and they want to come back the next semester and potentially complete their hours, we have an item called advance pay. So we could potentially cut a check to help that student out with the hardship. And then lastly, with this latest piece of legislation that just passed from the Senate, that also now allows us to continue to pay students 25 hours per week for a certain amount of weeks if they're unable to complete their duties. Very similar to how Department of Ed operates. So we're glad that legislation passed, and we'll be putting more guidance out about work study. But we are trying to do all we can for our work study students for sure. And I just caveat, I know I'm giving a lot of information here, so you can always check out our GI Bill website as well as our GI Bill Facebook page We keep that pretty current and up to date on the latest information of what's happening in our space.
There's one more that is less education specific, but more about disability claims processing. It's for a transitioning service member who's wondering the best way now to start the VA disability claims process, especially if they are 90 days out from their ETS date.
Hey, I can answer that. I provided an answer in the chat box, but so someone who's within the 90-day period does not, unfortunately, qualify for our benefits at discharge program. That's usually someone who's within the 180-day or 290-day period. So what they should do is just visit va.gov and file a claim and go through the normal claims process.
Thank you. Keeping with the VA team, let's see, going back to education. Can you speak to taking time off or taking a break in education, as far as taking a semester off, or how should students handle that if that's the direction that they need to take right now?
If they need to take a time off, then that's an individual decision to make. But as it relates to GI Bill benefits, at this point in time, there is no provision or ability for us to continue to pay. I know in former years we used to be able to authorize break pay, as they called it, and we could continue to pay a monthly housing allowance when a student took time off. But that ability is no longer there when it comes to GI Bill benefits.
And there's another question for a request for maybe referral to additional resources once the GI Bill has been extended, or once the GI Bill has been used. Do you tend to do you have referrals to other resources? How do you respond to those questions?
Okay. When someone's used up their GI Bill benefits in our space, we normally refer them back to their school to help them with additional resources in their particular state, as well as their school resources, any financial aid that could be provided in that arena. Right now, we'll tell you with the COVID-19 impacts, they did build in some extensions because of COVID-19 and all that's happening. So if anyone is having any issues related to COVID-19, also if anyone is having issues, if they're have a service-connected disability, they should reach out to VA and talk to us as well to help them out and maybe potentially provide them an extension.
Hi, and this is Will. I just wanted to jump in from the vocational rehabilitation and employment standpoint. Veterans with a disability should certainly, as they're running out of entitlement with the GI Bill, apply for VRNE services and meet with the counselor to determine whether or not they would be entitled to additional benefits up to 48 months total with Chapter 33 and Chapter 31, barring a serious employment handicap, which could, in fact, offer more benefits to the veteran. But we encourage all of you to apply for our program to continue to pursue your education career goals through Chapter 31 or vocational rehabilitation and employment.
Thank you. And SVA is going to be circulating a toolkit of resources. So again, there will be additional resources that follow. The contact information, again, for additional follow-up questions for multiple cases with the VA are available. We do have some questions to turn back to Sarah and Drew. Sarah and Drew, there's a specific question about military skills translators. I'll kind of open up that conversation a little bit with, someone's also asking if you're seeing high demands for particular MOSs. I know a lot of the conversations that we have with employers at Hiring Our Heroes is really not so much about an MOS and trying to go apples to apples, but thinking more about the attributes that come from a military connected, job seeker and the soft skills that are associated with them, and those being transferable to various fields. But if you'd like to address the question regarding skills translators, does Indeed or LinkedIn use any of those, or what is your take? This person is finding those translators with resume searches are typically not effective.
Sarah, do you want to go or first or?
Yeah, go ahead and jump in. I'll follow.
Okay. So this is a unique one. I like this question for a few different reasons. Back in 2017, Indeed actually built out an MOS translator. And what we saw is, again, I think, Mona, the way you described it, that apples to apples translation. Not everybody wants to do what they did in the military, especially if you're going to use the GI Bill and you're going to graduate with a different type of degree or service under your belt. And MOS may not, serve you justice. What we've seen at Indeed and the way our site is we're an aggregator of all the different jobs. All the jobs, one place, one search is kind of what we do here. So what we've done is we put the ball back in the job seeker's court, giving them the free will to decide what do they want to do next, and how do they want to go about getting there. I think an MOS translator will show them a path that can align, but not really align with actually what they want to do, where they want to do it. So I think pigeonholing the job seekers isn't really in our best interest. But what we do is if we see that veterans are clicking on the loaded and stocking positions, then we will work with the employers to get their loaded and stocking positions in front of those veteran users. And that's kind of our message to the employer as well when it comes to MOS translators. Why chase someone's MOS in the military if they just graduated from a university with a master's, or they're going down a completely different career path of what they've done in the military, and target them based on what they want to do next and what they're engaging with, and not pigeonhole them into just because they're an 88 mic, this is the job that they're going to do next. So I'm not the biggest fan of it. And kind of the searches that or the webinars that we do with Hiring Our Heroes is when you do a search, you really want to just keep searching and refining and repeating the way you're going about it to find what you want to do next. And then what we're going to do over here is bridge the gap with employers to help them find you based on what you want to do, and not based off of what your MOS is. But you can always use that as a guiding light to say, if I did this in the military, I could be great at these positions, but then search for those positions on the platform and apply to them without really holding yourself hostage to just an MOS.
Yeah, I absolutely agree on the MOS translators. I think that they are relatively limiting, especially when through our research, we know that 55% of veterans who are actively in transition actually are looking to pivot and completely change industries from maybe what they were doing in the military. That said, I think that from our military service, we're absolutely learning incredibly valuable skills that are translatable. I think one of the ways that LinkedIn looks at it is it's really up to us to showcase and highlight the skills that align with the key industries that we're most passionate about and that we're interested in. So one of the things I like to recommend is, as an active job seeker, is to really be forward looking. You want to demonstrate that level of optimism, but start to research job descriptions, some of the vernacular that they're using, the language, the skills, and use that as a way to sort of step backwards and look at your own individual profile, your experience, and incorporate that language. The other piece, which I'm sure most folks on this call would agree, is recruiters, unless they have a relatively robust military program, have a limited understanding of military language. And so there are some amazing companies that have been able to bring on folks with a military background that sit in recruiting. However, that still is not the majority across the recruiting world and across the recruiting space. And so it's really up to us to go above and beyond and to ask for help. That's where you can leverage your network in terms of how to best translate your skills. One of the other things that I absolutely love, and I'll say this here because we're all learning, but leveraging LinkedIn to basically plagiarize people's profiles who have transitioned before you, who are working in some of those jobs and industries, is a great way to look at, how somebody who maybe was a first sergeant who is now working in a job that you find appealing and interesting. How did that person translate their skills? How did they demonstrate their key title and their description? And so I think those are all things that we can continue to learn from each other, but that's another great way that you can leverage LinkedIn kind of as an open source search tool. One, to search the jobs that are available, but then also to search the people and the network and use that as an opportunity to ask for help. And then I guess just the last piece, again, as it relates to certain jobs and MOSs, we did highlight, both Andrew and I, some of the areas and what we're seeing through the data. And we're seeing, certain MOSs very clearly that might be more applicable or translatable, like truck drivers, mechanics. We're seeing warehousing, construction, that might align more with if you have a supply chain background. So there's certainly a correlation to be drawn there if you want to go into that particular industry.
Thank you. Real quickly, Sarah, can you revisit how a job seeker can find the urgent jobs in LinkedIn?
Yes. So if what I will do is I'll share the link so that everybody has it.
Great, thank you. With that, I want to be considerate of time. We are pretty much on our time here. I do want to address quickly, there is a specific question about resources for military spouses. At Hiring Our Heroes, all of our programs and events are open to military spouses as well. So the professional development and the training curriculum, the hiring event, those are all serving military spouses. But, Drew, again, with your resume services and Indeed, those are also open to military spouses. I'd like for you to highlight that really quickly. And Sarah, again, LinkedIn is very much supporting military spouses too with profiles and just opening up, platforms to military spouses. So if you guys would like to real quickly touch on how you're serving military spouses specifically, that would be great.
Yeah, thanks, Mona. Yeah, we just rolled out a resume review service, which we're excited to announce that we're rolling that out to military spouses as well. I think military spouses have really vocalized the problems that they're running into, especially with some gaps in their resume. So we're here to help. That's kind of our slogan. We help people get jobs. So having military spouses a part of this is really exciting for us. And all the resources on veterans.indeed.com can also show anybody who's a spouse, dependent, transitioning, or a veteran how to do a job search, how to get your resume in line, and just tips and tricks along the way, as well as the COVID-19 data that we were talking about as well. So we're doing more for military spouses because we don't want to forget, everyone who's sacrificing as well. So we're happy to roll that out. So thanks for that, Mona.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think there's just so much tremendous support across the industry and employers for military spouses. Military spouses can access LinkedIn free premium during every career transition, job change, job loss, or pivot. So now that's even more pivotal than ever. So a military spouse can feasibly have LinkedIn premium during their entire service alongside their service member. And through our partnership with Hiring Our Heroes, we have worked really closely to build out sort of an academic curriculum or a learning path through LinkedIn Learning, which is again free to LinkedIn Premium users. That's very specifically catered towards Hiring Our Heroes curriculum, and then also to evangelize some of the skills that they're working really closely in the trends they're seeing to help support military spouses.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Drew. Again, tremendous work to support the entire community, which we so appreciate. And especially for student veterans, often the spouse is, the a financial stakeholder in the household while the student veteran is in school. And so we understand that military spouse employment goes beyond just active duty service. So our definition at Hiring Our Heroes of a military spouse is anybody whose career has been impacted by the service of a significant other. You know, it's not left, right limited to having an ID card that says you're a military spouse. We want to support you. So again, lots of resources, a lot of support across the country right now for spouses, understanding how important that is to the stability of the entire family. With that though, I apologize, we are not going to get through all the questions due to our time restrictions, but our contact information is going to be shared at the end of this session. I do want to readdress quickly the events that we're hosting that include LinkedIn and Indeed, and additional resources and partners. And this one this one as well is on hiringourheroes.org/events. You'll see the entire event list there, to include the employer connections, to include the career fair that we are hosting, and then additional training sessions where Drew and Sarah will both be back providing more, more information and more Q&A. So again, stay engaged, stay in touch. I will turn it back to Ryan and Lauren now. There is one question for SVA though, Ryan and Lauren, if you'd just like to address how they can connect with SVA and be more engaged, probably with their local chapters, but overall.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Mona, and thank you to all of our panelists as well and everyone who participated today. At the chapter level, we're hearing from a lot of chapters who are actually having more attendance and engagement at their meetings now that they're virtual, which is a little bit of a bright side with folks who often have busy schedules or are commuters to class or other situations like that. So we absolutely encourage virtual chapter meetings and professional development events. And then from the perspective here at your national headquarters in Washington, D.C., we always want to hear from you if there's anything that we can be doing to better support you. The easiest way to get in touch is contact@studentveterans.org. We're also going to be keeping resources compiled at resources.studentveterans.org. I know we've had a lot of links and phone numbers going back and forth on here, but that's another one where we're going to do our best to keep all the resources we hear about. And in the coming weeks, we're also going to send out more resources via email. If you're on our list, toolkits, pretty much everything that we can find that we vet and feel is a helpful resource, we want to get it out to all of you guys.